What's up everyone, this is Cher talking, welcome back to my channel. In today's video we're gonna make a full review for the Heroes banner that brings new versions of Alkaiser, a now Slash and Sun specialist with very good sustain, Alkarl, a real tank with very good resistance, and M Black, a slash and shadow damage dealer with critical damage. We're gonna start talking about Alkaiser since he gives the name to the banner, and there are plenty of versions of Alkaiser in red. Here we can see only a part of them, but the last version was called a Hero's Duty, and he was a master of blunt and sun damage, so we shall compare them. Now we have Iron Fist of Justice that specializes on Slash and Sun but still equips Mart's weapon, having 5% higher STR than Agility, much bigger endurance and wheel. We got 22 and 24% increase. We lost some intelligence. He can debuff with submission, but you should ignore this. Dexterity does not matter, and we only lost some love because Perfector style can heal with one skill, but we got bigger charisma. Now let's click here. The combined status of this Alkaiser is something amazing because by not using Dexterity or even Intelligence, they could just increase all other remaining status, and even on global we got buffs to Endurance and Will to make him much better. And he comes with bonuses for Endurance and Agility instead of Agility and STR. I kind of like this because Endurance is more valuable than STR in my opinion when fighting against bosses. And there are double arrows for Endurance and one arrow for STR. It's pretty easy to find double arrows for Agility. You can find in his Platinum style or in his Global X Red style if you have it. Now, moving on. We have the first passive called Breath of Invigoration 1. When landing an attack, recovers HP by around 150 and 1 BP as well. That means that he has 4 BP cycles that will allow him to do some interesting stuff. The second passive is called Strengthened Attack 2, increasing damage by 15% at all times, and starts the fight with 12 BP. This will allow him to inherit any type of attack from his past styles and use it on turn 1. Then there is High Protect Tension, increasing damage at all times by 20%, and also when attacked, decreases damage received by 30. This is very nice for boss fights. He already has very big endurance and will, that means that damage will be very low, so very nice. When we compare this to the Perfector style, we had 40% damage increase, but now we have only 35. It's a downgrade, but since we have higher STR than Agility, I think they should do similar damage anyway. But in the exchange of having a much better sustain when compared to the Perfector style. If you are looking out for just big numbers of damage, Alkaiser may not be your better character, but he does bring utility by surviving much better than other damage dealers. Now for skills we have Raise Word, a 0 BP skill, so it's free, that uses Slash and Sun damage, and will show you the trend. He does not do blunt. So Shadow and Sun, for free, nice to cover double elements, and will help him with rotations on auto. The second skill is called the Kaiser Ring Ray. For 6 PP you get a full AoE attack with Slash and Sun again, C power and 17 more. This may not be so strong, because it is not. And it's actually a little of an improvement over Punishing Fist, something that he already has access to, but he switched it out blunt and got Slash and Sun. It will work well if he's placed on the front line of a Hurricane formation or either on the Agility or STR position of Rainbow Rangers. And he will not be able to clear any waves with his attack. If you pair him up with another character with C power damage, maybe they will be able to kill the enemies together. And the last attack is called Kaiser Double Impact, a 10 DP skill that hits 2 times with 8 power Slash and Sun damage. Each hit will also buff both STR and Agility by 25%. This is a very impressive skill that was actually saw before in Lunar New Year Final Impress. She had this attack called Hazy Twin Moon that has the same description. Slash and Sun damage, double hits, buffs STR and Agility by 25% on max value. While we don't know the mod if they are the same, they have the same description. And Kaiser Double Impact actually fixes a problem with many martial artists. They need both STR and Agility in their damage formula, and some martial artists will only buff Agility, getting only half of the value to increase their damage output, but Alkaiser buffs two things. That means that he gets full 25% increase, and he can use Kaiser double impact on turn 1, then on turn 2 he uses Raise Word, and then on turn 3 he uses Kaiser double impact again. Also remember that every new hit buffs, so damage scales pretty well. The only problem is that after the second usage of Kaiser double impact on turn 3, he will have to wait more turns to be able to use it again, because he gets 4 BP per turn, but the skill itself costs 10. That means that he may have to wait 3 turns. But if you have other characters that buff BP like iToken, Minstrel, Virgil, and some others, you can short the cycle. Even Null's Daughter will help him a lot. Now, there's some problem with martial artists in the recent game, because Leon covers blunt for bossing, and no martial artist come even close to Leon. I think Liza comes the closest, and she's actually really a cold damage dealer instead. So, he also covers Slash with Wind Bullet, but, well, Kaiser has sun damage here. You can just bring him when the enemy is weak to sun, but not to Slash and not to Blunt. And if the enemy is more focused on doing physical attacks, you can also bring Matriarch with Peon of Victory instead of Peon of Peace. That buffs STR, Agility, Endurance, and Intelligence. He likes STR, Agility, and Endurance because this increases his damage and his resistance to physical attacks, meaning that he will evade pretty easily, and even if he gets hit, won't be for much, making him a very good damage dealer for long fights if he can keep up. So there's at least this strategy that will work well for him. Now I guess we need to talk about inheritances, and maybe the most interesting one comes from the Perfector style. He has Final Crusade. This is an insanely strong heal, has S power, it will recover everyone from 0 to max, even if he has low love, and then revives as well, and applies Guard Up Medium, decreasing all damage by 25% for 3 turns. You can use this when you are in very low health, and applying Guard Up Medium for 3 turns means that you receive less damage for some time, giving enough time for another healer to heal in the future. This is actually for emergency situations and boss fights. Now, if you want to farm, you can also inherit Sunlaw Phoenix. This is a full AoE attack and has Blunt and Sun. That is more for when you have only one wave of enemies. Another interesting inheritance comes from the first version. There is All Phoenix X, and he can use this attack 3 times in a row. It's not that strong, but it's fast, and if you really want to use it, you can. Another one will come from his S style, and it's Raksha. There are actually 2 different S styles of Red. One can be found in Story, and the other one can be found on Premium Banners. And Raksha Plus is now available. It's a 4S attack for only 10 DP cost and blunt damage. So if you want him to do blunt instead of Sun and Slash, he can, but this one has delays, so it has some problem when making combos. And remember, martial artists are not even useful in Tiger's Den formation, so he does not even work there. You have to bring him in other formations and use delay. Besides, there is also Punishing Combo. This is a 3-hit attack, opens with full AoE, B damage, and then 2 Key Blasts. The full damage potential reaches 4S in a single part, and then you have the extra damage on AoE. And there is also Hummingbird. This one is very useful because you can open buffing SR and Agility 2 times and then keep up buffing Agility, but this time with blunt damage, right? Because of his very high agility, he can solo some very old content if you haven't finished yet, and even some future content if you can buff him with other buffers as long as you keep buffing yourself. But I don't see if you will be able to use this in many cases. Punishing Fist can also be used 3 times in a row if you only want blunt, but as I said, this is not that strong, only if you have another character with similar output and if they can clear waves themselves. Oh, and one more thing, in the very far future there is an amplify for the Real Phoenix attack in his Platinum style, that will go from triple S damage to 4S, and because you have 12 VP on start, you can open with this in some farming situations. Well, I guess these are all the inheritance options for this Alkaiser. I have to say that he's a pretty fun character to have, with good sustain, but there's plenty of competition for damage dealers. The good thing is that in Remembrance battles, I believe he's gonna be very useful, especially if you can inherit from the Perfector style, but he's not a must-have, won't be so important moving forward, and if you want to skip him, you can. He won't affect many accounts unless you're having very difficulty with Remembrance battles. Still, he's a good character and will receive a standard double S grade in our tier list. And as an extra info, there is a future version of Red Alkaiser that was not really like it on JP because it has very bad status distribution. It's even worse than the current Alkaiser. And it also has a skill that charges attack enhancement without attacking, and this attack enhancement will just disappear. It should have been heat up. His second skill is a single target attack that changes with a very weak AoE, I don't know why. And the last attack is a fully whip without any other effect with 9 BP coast and slash and blunt. Well, I do believe that they will change this in global a lot because as it is, it's extremely lacking. Now we should talk about Alkarl, and there are two versions of Alkarl now. The past one called it Alkarl Arrives and the new one called it Watching Over You. The new one has a better offensive status, with STR and agility being much better, but we lost some endurance, 12% and 12% will as well. Love and charisma are inferior but should not make much difference. They did this just to increase his intelligence because of one attack, and that was kinda of a shame. He could use the status in different departments, but he's pretty defensive already, has arrows for both endurance and agility, just like Alkaiser, and that's good. And you can find other arrows in his passive style. You'll find STR and Will. Now, moving on for passives, the first one is called the Fighting Energy Agility. On the start of a turn, he has a 50% chance to buff his own agility by 25% and also recovers BP by 2. Well, 25% is a very good number, right? And we don't have any characters that buff agility with passives. And on average, you have 12.5% buff every turn. Yeah, because it's 50% chance. And 1 BP as well. Again, 50% chance. The second passive is called Master Stance. When his HP is full, he has a 25% chance to evade all sorts of attacks. When HP is not full, he will decrease damage by 25% and also increase his damage capabilities by 20. It's his only damage increase passive. But we also have our wall defense 6 decreasing all damage by 40%. So we already have here minus 40%, minus 25%. It's already a very good start for a tank. Now moving on for skills, the first one is called 1-inch punch. It's a fast attack with the power and 14 mod, not that strong, okay, but it grants the target guard down, and no enemy resists this. And because it's fast, that means that it will just increase the damage output of the other characters in the party since he himself is not a damage dealer. Well, it's a way to fix the problem. The second skill is called Bright Phoenix, and it's actually very good. 8 BP for S power, blunt, and sun. Well, he's not really a damage dealer, damage won't be that high, but it carries two different effects. The first, a medium down stance, that means that he will draw more enemy attacks, and also a medium defense boost that lasts for 4 turns. Both effects, actually. Medium defense boost decreases damage by another 25, so minus 40, minus 25, and again, minus 25. It's multiplicative, not additive, but it means the damage will be reduced by a lot. His endurance and will are actually pretty good, so he is a real tank that just wants to draw enemy attacks and decrease the damage that he receives. What's even better about Bright Phoenix? 8 BP. I told you that he gets 4 BP on average. He can actually stack both taunt and defense boost, meaning that you have a 4th defense reduction of minus 25 if you know how to cycle well his attacks. Very good. And the taunt thing actually helps by targeting all damage to him, but only if your boss focus more on single target attacks. It will not help the party if the boss is using many AoE attacks and everyone else is dying besides Alkarl. So it's for a specific boss. And even after using Bright Phoenix, if you have his past style, you can inherit Shining Kick that gives him taunt again. So every attack will give taunt, meaning that the chances of he being attacked by single target attacks will increase by a lot. But there's only one problem. This is still pretty specific. Your boss has to attack mostly with single target attacks so that Alkarl makes sense. If he's using many AoE attacks, well, what helps if everyone is dead besides Alkarl? Nothing. And it also brings one big question. Alkarl is good, yes, but he does not bring any support to the party. Whereas, we do have two very big players that do. Well, the first of them all is actually Rag Robin. Rag Robin heals the party and he also taunts, right? Heal is super important in boss fights, and I use Rag Robin everywhere. Another one is Mask. Mask is also very defensive with great adventure and iron wall defense. Pretty close to Alkarl, to be honest. And he can also guard people because of his hostile protection. Not just that, when he gets to overdrive, you heal the party. See where I'm going? Those two cover most different scenarios already, and they bring heal. And there's yet another player that is UniverSe. That is a Platinum style, and UniverSe has great adventure and iron wall defense as well. That means that he can do almost the same thing as Alkarl can, with the difference that he has, well, less options of taunt, but great adventure taunts 3 times as well. That means that on average it's not much of a difference at all. And he counterattacks too. So when comparing him to UniverSe may still be more useful most of the time, because he's just there as a full tank. But when do you really need a full tank without party support? I don't know, and I will question myself many times before I use him because of the other options available. Sadly, but that's true. Then we have the third skill called Raksha Plus. For 10 BP, you have a single target attack. We talk about this on Alkaiser review. 4S damage, very strong, has delay, but carries also a high chance to instant kill. I don't know why it has high chance to instant kill. I don't know when I want to use this. There may be some situations. His intelligence is 75%. It should be good enough because of the high chance. You can still buff him if you want, but the enemy needs to be extremely powerful and not resistant to instant kill to make Alkarl survive all the attacks and try to instant kill with Raksha. Or you can bring him in a farming scenario where you want everyone to just test their skills and then he uses the delay attack and you kill the enemy either by damage or by instant kill. But it's still pretty niche. It's just for very situational moments. As for other inheritances, I don't think any of them will work well with him. He has All Spread, that is a full AoE attack with Blunt and Sun, and All Phoenix, that is a fast attack, but like I said, he's not really a damage dealer. Even if he buffs his agility, he's only buffing part of the damage formula, something that Alkaiser does much better. So you should only care about the first skill, and even without it, he still works pretty well, because you can still use Bright Phoenix every 2 turns most of the time. Taunting 2 times will be more than enough to keep him drawing enemy attacks. But since the competition is pretty big, Alkarl only receives a very low SS grade and will also be demoted to S in the future, and it's extremely easy to skip. Now we shall talk about the last character of the banner, and that one is M Black. He is a farmer with access to 3 damage types: Slash, Pierce, and Shadow. The last version of him was called I've Waited for This. Now the current is called Surpassing the Hero. We can compare the status. As you can see, the STR is the same. We lost Endurance from 102 down to 70s. Dexterity was decreased at only 61%. In boss fights, he's gonna miss here and there. Agility was increased to 115% because he's a debuffer, he wants to go first. Intelligence is now 100%, I just said, he's a debuffer. Will was decreased just by 5, and Love and Charisma barely matters. This character here comes with double arrows for intelligence, 1 arrow for STR, bonuses goes for both status, and it's his main focuses besides agility. So he wants to do damage, he wants to be fast, he wants to be a reliable debuffer, but he will take some good damage, will also fail here and there unless you bring some buffers. Well, in his welfare style you can find endurance arrows, and in his first premium style there's double arrows for STR. Now, he comes with high detox tension. This increases his damage by 20%, very nice. Most detox passives are only about healing or cleansing, and he will also cleanse on the end of a turn, like most robots, but there's still a chance of getting inflicted with confusion and attacking your party before he cleanses. Then the second passive, his critical knowledge 4. Attacks will deal critical damage to human and mech, and also all critical damage will increase by 30%, pretty similar to Udon passive, but instead of human and beast, he covers human and mech. Now the last one is called High Protect Tension, increasing all damage by 20% and reducing damage taken by 30%. As you can see now, it doesn't seem so bad to have 70% endurance, but it is very bad to have only 55 will because he can get inflicted with ailments easily, although he cleanses, so there is kind of a counterbalance here. So let's count everything. We have 40% increase in all times and 70% increase against enemies that are hit by critical effects. Going for skills, we have Sword Draw, a full AoE attack that deals slash and pierce damage with E power and 6 mod. That's kind of like normal attack, but a little better because of the skill level, and has a chance to buff dexterity by up to 15% on max value. Well, 15% dexterity debuff to AoE targets. Oh my goodness. You remember Bolcon, right? From Christmas. Did you summon on Christmas? You should, because there is Final Impress in that banner. And we have Mirage Hit, that's a blunt attack, that has also a chance to debuff dexterity, even higher intelligence, and Bolcon also debuffs dexterity with passive and even higher with his skill number 3. If you got Bolcon, you already have full AoE dexterity covered. There's also Beauty, she also covers AoE dexterity debuff, and she buffs her intelligence further, and let's just give a look on her anyway. And she will be better for situations where the enemy has extremely high will or keep buffing will. See, she buffs her intelligence, and Wind Bloom is the attack that debuffs dexterity. But if the enemy does not have any of this, either M Black or Bolcon will work. But if you already have Bolcon, you don't really need to summon just because of this skill itself. Now the second skill is called Sword Chain. For 5 VP we have a single target attack that deals slash and pierce damage and has a chance to debuff intelligence by medium effect. Damage is okay. Medium debuff is 20%, so kinda good. We have many attacks that debuff intelligence, but only 15%. A competition should be Rabbit. She also has 20% with her Jawbreaker. And the other one is Real Queen. She also has access to the same thing by her S style, but their version costs 6 BP, whereas Sword Chain Plus actually only costs 5. There is another character that can use this, and it's Ottoman. You have to amplify, but Ottoman does not have the same intelligence, only 80%, as you can see here. You can inherit from his Platinum style and amplify. So, it's a reliable skill most of the time, and if it's not, you should just bring an intelligence buffer to increase his intelligence even further. Now, the last skill is called Dark Phoenix. For 8 BP, you have a fast attack that hits for a row of enemies, and it's Pierce and Shadow now. and grants the enemy defense down that will last for 3 turns, decreasing their resistance by 15%. That means that you go first and increase the damage output of the characters that go after you. Well, this is nice, right? 8 PP, he can use on turn 1 and then again on turn 3 on manual. On auto he cannot because word draw will get in the way. You will only be able to perform that again later. So it's more for when you want to farm and the enemies are lying on a row and there's only one wave and you want to open with this attack. If the enemies are human or mech, the damage will be very nice. And, well, you can even apply defense down again on turn 3 for playing on manual and it will still account for 2 debuffs, decreasing resistance by 30. If you don't want to use a row attack, you can use something else. Now, his welfare style has Moon Scrapper, and you can now amplify this into A power, slash, and shadow. And this will also grant defense down to all targets. It has A power instead of S, but, well, depends on the situations. If the enemies are aligned in a row, just use Dark Phoenix. If they are aligned in anything else, you can just use Moon Scrapper Plus. See? And this one is not fast, but he's pretty agile. That means that he will likely go before the other characters and increase the damage potential just the same. When you look on this, from his best premium style, he also has Swallow Reversal Plus. And this is a single target attack that applies defense down as well. All of the attacks will last for 3 turns, so he became a specialist to apply defense down. Is he a damage dealer? Yes, surely, he is. But he's not a very strong one because of the skills that he has access to are kinda limited. But even if he does not do that much himself, he will just amplify the damage of the other people in the party. And I can tell you that he can be used in boss fights, although I'll hardly ever bring him in. I think that in Remembrance battles, maybe better justified because he has high protect tension and can increase the damage output to break some tear souls before bosses do something strange and kill you. So there's some utility here, but the problem is that he's only critical against humans and mechs, like Yudon, for example, that goes for 4 types, and even then, he keeps switching the types. He can open with Dark Phoenix, but then he will use Sword Draw, and you are going from Pierce and Shadow to Slash and Pierce. And even if you open with Moon Scrapper, that is Slash and Shadow, and then becomes Slash and Pierce. See, he's not always covering both elements, unlike Yudon that is always focused on Slash and Pierce. When comparing both as farmer, Yudon is better. But for Pierce, we have plenty of different options, starting with the latest version of J-Mew. He has an S-power attack called Streaming Pierce that can be used 2 times in a row. Besides, there is also the latest Platinum version of Cordelia. There is also SaGa Soul Sparrow and also Yudon. He does bring defense down to increase the damage of the other characters, but it still does not make him so special, at least in my opinion. With his cycles being switching between damage types, I don't think M Black adds too much into farming compositions, and can actually be easily skipped in my opinion as well, especially since we got characters with access to Dexterity debuff, and there are plenty of Intelligence debuffers as well. With all that said, he's gonna receive a very low double S grade, eventually gonna be demoted to only S. Now back to the banner image. Is this banner worth summoning for? In my honest opinion, no. It will only receive a bronze award. But it's a fan favorite banner. People that like these characters will pull. Even I can pull for Alkaiser because I really like the character. He is actually strong, has good sustain, good status, will help in Remembrance battles, but it's just that we have plenty of other options for martial arts and he won't offer enough to justify just, well, reaching a point of pity, in my opinion. Alkarl is a very good tank, but he does not offer party support, something that 3 other tanks do, even one that is Platinum, so his utility and value decreases a lot. And there is also M Black, a critical specialist that has very strange rotations and won't be so special in the long run. So you have a banner where you summon only if you like the characters. But that is my opinion. What is yours? Please say here in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please subscribe if you haven't, and I hope to see you soon in the next video. Bye.